I just wanted to do a declaration before I begin to speak. I do work for CARFA as a consultant, leading the team in the response to COVID. I'm not representing CARFA today. I'm speaking as a professional in my own capacity and as a member of the community who has a responsibility. So it is in that context where I'm standing here. I need to put this declaration up for political reasons. Thank you. So today I'm just going to quickly run through what's happening, give you an update. I want to talk to you a little bit about what the coronavirus disease is, where we are, some important information that we all need to know, and what we can all do together to help us get through these times. Thanks. Please go to the next slide. All right, so the coronaviruses are a large family of viruses that they're not new. We have seen these, and they're usually associated with various types of animals. So, for example, there are coronaviruses in camels. We see them in cats, bats. They're very common in some animals. It is very rare, however, when these viruses jump from one animal species to another. And we've seen this happen before. So it's happened before with the Middle East respiratory syndrome virus, from jumping from camels into people. So if you've heard about MERS-CoV in the Middle East in particular, we've seen this before with the SARS coronavirus, that we had another major pandemic in early 2000s, I think 2002. And again now we are seeing the SARS coronavirus number 2 that is very similar to the first SARS virus, and this one again has jumped from an animal species into humans. Now, we are still not very sure where this particular coronavirus came from. Early speculations assume it is from bats because it's very similar to other coronaviruses that have been isolated from bats before. And initially, when the outbreak started, the first groups of people who started to come up with symptoms and were reported were linked to this animal market in the Wuhan area in China. So most scientists assume, based on history, that this is linked to some kind of animals. They found environmental samples, I suppose, swabs with water, maybe from wastewater from soil and so on, that did contain the virus. But to date, nobody has found the animal or an animal that contains the identical virus. All right? So, what is coronavirus disease? It is a new disease that started and is associated with the SARS coronavirus 2, and the World Health Organization has given it the name SARS-CoV-2. And as I said, it was first reported in China in December. Some of the scientists that have done projections assume that it may have actually started a little bit earlier, maybe from late November, but the first cases actually showed up in hospital in early December. Now, we have never seen this virus before, and some of the hype and some of the issues around the virus is because of its novelty. That means we have never seen it before. Humans have never been infected by it before, and so we really don't know much about what to expect from when people get sick and how to manage them. And so there's no current treatment that we are aware of for the virus. And I believe some of the issues that we have seen is because of the newness surrounding this virus. So initially, as I said, the first set of cases showed up at the hospital, and people thought, oh, they worked with animals, they got it from the animals. However, as time went by, other people who had nothing to do with this market began to appear at hospitals. And then it became very clear that people was able to pass this on from person to person. Yeah? How we assume it is being passed on is through the droplets, because people tend to have a cough. So when people are coughing, the virus gets expelled in the droplets from the cough or the sneeze, and then other people are able to pick this up. And I'll say a little bit more about that when we get to some of the later slides. Now, when people cough, as we all have done at some point or the other, sometimes something comes out of our mouth. And that contaminated spit or the sputum that comes out will have the little virus particles inside of it. So when that comes out, it may fall on a chair or on the table, or when we catch it with our hands, it gets onto our hands. So what happens is, when that hand or the surface or the chair or the counter, wherever that spit falls onto, becomes contaminated, then it means that the virus is there, and if someone else comes and touch that place, or if you use that hand to touch something, you can contaminate it with the virus. And that is really the rationale behind all the talk about washing your hands, and also the social distancing and keeping a bit of distance between people. It is a very simple thing. You cough, the cough, based on the size of your cough particles that come out, it can go maybe as far as 3 to 4 feet, depending on how badly you coughed or sneezed. So what seems like really tricky science is actually very simple. It's based on the fact that when you cough or sneeze, it will most likely go a little bit of distance. So anyone within that space close enough to you might be able to catch it, because it may fall on their eyes, or in their mouth, on any part of their body, and once they touch that, it can also infect them. Does that make sense? Yes. So the other thing that we have heard quite a bit about, and scientists are a little bit divided about this, is this issue about people without symptoms spreading the disease. My hypothesis as an infectious disease expert is this: some people can become infected with the virus, but they have not yet started to show symptoms. Remember, this has quite a long incubation period from what we know, about 14 days. But sometimes you start to feel sick, but it's not really obvious. You just start to have a little funny feeling inside. So it might not be obvious. So when you show up, you might not be able to say, well, I really can't remember coughing, or, but it might actually be in your mouth or just in the throat at that time without starting to give you symptoms. So that is what some people are saying. There is a possibility that could happen. Now, it is biologically plausible from a scientific perspective that might be true. But also remember that the vast majority of people who get this illness does not really have very strong symptoms. So that is part of it. People are very hardy. They are used to having cough, cold and flu. They might not even notice that, oh, actually I did cough one time yesterday, or so on. So some of this is probably what is happening with that. All right, can I go to the next slide, please? So just a little bit of history. On the 30th of January, the World Health Organization, based on the information that was coming in, decided to declare that this outbreak was now a public health emergency of international concern. And that meant that it has spread across multiple boundaries, and the numbers of cases were seemingly increasing at a pace that was out of the norm, and it was rapidly spreading from place to place, and it required additional measures to help countries to control it. Once that has happened, though, it also gives some of these international organizations the ability to mobilize resources to get access to additional funding from sources where they would not normally be able to do in an usual outbreak. All right? Now, on the 1st of March, the first case in the English-speaking Caribbean was confirmed, and that was in Jamaica. And the same day, before that announcement was made, the Caribbean Epidemiology Center, the Caribbean Public Health Agency upgraded the risk to the region, because we were having cases from the French West Indies areas, and we actually had cases coming from French Guiana, which has a land border with Suriname. So, the risk now has become real to the Caribbean at that time. Now, on the 11th of March, which is just about 4 days ago, after considering that now every region in the world has got at least one confirmed case. And the last region in the world to become infected was actually the Caribbean. And then straight away, the Pacific and the Caribbean, I think, had the same day declared they had the first country. So those two regions, the Western Pacific region, the Pacific Islands, and the Caribbean, which are actually exactly mirror on the other side of the world, announced their first cases on the same day. And so I think that is what WHO was waiting for. And that is when it became declared as a pandemic. All right? Some people project that by the end of April, all countries would have had at least one case. Now, whether that is so or not, please go to the next slide. I am not going to speculate. All right? Now, I want to explain a few terms for you. What is the difference between an outbreak and an epidemic and a pandemic? People have asked this question, and I think it's important to make it clear. An outbreak is usually a very small number of cases, but it is above what is normal for a certain geographical area. All right? So diseases that you generally see, you would see a few numbers trickling in. But when it goes above a certain number, and for every disease there's a number that can be considered an outbreak. So in some circumstances, one case of a certain thing could actually be an outbreak because the normal level is 0. Does that make sense? So when you get one case, it is 100% more than 0. All right? So every disease has its own threshold to be called an outbreak. Now it becomes an epidemic when that has spread from a localized area across multiple boundaries or across multiple or an expanded geographical area. So for example, in the case of COVID-19, it started in China, and the initial cases were just centered around mainland China and some of the territories and a few of the Asian countries. And within a couple of weeks, then we started to see cases popping up in Europe, in the Americas, and in Australia. So then it is now described as an epidemic because those initial cases that were contracted in Asia began to give it to other people in those overseas territories. And I already explained that the pandemic was declared when multiple regions across the world began to report cases. But in addition to that, what distinguishes an epidemic from a pandemic is the fact that the authorities believe that the outbreak has got to a place where normal and traditional control measures are not able to contain it anymore. And that is the difference. So it has got to the stage now where we've tried everything and people are still showing up with it. And that now also gives countries and leaders the ability to exercise additional powers based on the fact that this is now a pandemic. So what that means is that, for example, in the case of Trinidad and Tobago or our countries here, and you have seen this on the news, the Prime Minister can now use the state of emergency type laws. They can shut down schools, they can shut down mass gatherings, they can actually command people to stay home, they can actually commandeer your vehicle, they can say, okay, I need your business place to do this, and you have to comply. So these in a pandemic setting, there are additional measures that a government or a sovereign territory is able to put in place to help them to protect the community from further spread and to save more lives. All right, thank you. All right, now if you could play this, I did a quick little video. I actually if you can press play for me on the screen. I did a screen recording of this with my phone just to show you how the disease started across and how it spread. Go ahead if you can play it. I hope you can see it. Yes, it's playing. So if you have a look at that, you see it started in Asia, and then the numbers of cases began to multiply, and it got bigger and bigger. And then people began to travel and take the disease with them to different places. But then people from those other places now started to travel to other places, and that's how the disease was spread. To date, all of the cases that are being confirmed in the Caribbean, none of them were linked to China. Not even one of them, as far as I know. Every single one of them came from somewhere other than China. Europe, Italy has been the seeding spot for the Caribbean so far. And a few of the other cases have come from England and I think the US recently. But the vast majority, the first cases in Cuba were all Italians. And many other countries, all of them, the ones in French Guiana, the people went on a church trip and they came back with it. So as you can see, this is how an epidemic spreads, and then it becomes so big that you just can't stop it anymore. Please go to the next slide. Next. All right, so just to give you an idea of what the figures are. So this data, I pulled this yesterday. So up until yesterday afternoon, about 4:45, I pulled this. There were since the start of the outbreak, there were 155,840 cases reported. Today, there were 69,680 active cases. Now let me explain this. You see that big 155,000? It doesn't mean that we have 155,000 people walking around with COVID. There are some people who have recovered. A good number of people have recovered. Yeah? Now, among those who are still actively infected, about 92% of these people actually have very mild disease. And some of them have just been tested positive just because they know they have been somewhere. It's not necessarily because they are sick and in hospital. The vast majority of these people are not in a health facility. They just went in because of the measures that have been put in place to say, if you've been to this place or you've traveled, a lot of health authorities have just been testing people if they came off a plane. That's how they found it. Some of them are not sick as per se in bed and not being able to operate. Now there's another smaller percentage, about 8% or so, of these people who are the ones with the more severe disease and require hospitalization. Now, closed cases. This is to show you the number of cases that have closed. So we have had over 70,000 people who have already recovered from COVID-19 and they are back to their normal business and out and about. And out of all these people, only 5,800 people have died. So just to put that in a little bit of perspective, please keep going, right? So based on the total numbers of cases confirmed to date, we calculated the case fatality rate, or the number of people who died out of the number of those who have been confirmed with the infection, to be about 3.7%. So this is saying about around 4 out of every 100 people who have been infected so far across the globe have died from COVID. It's a fairly small number when you look at it, all right? And up until yesterday evening, 150 countries were reported. Now this information, I quickly pulled this off one of the websites yesterday, just to give you an idea of the countries in the Caribbean that have reported cases. And basically it arrived here almost the same time. Within 2 days, we got Jamaica first, and by the time Jamaica confirmed their second case, I think the same day, by the next day we were just getting them, and it's just been moving. And most of these people have actually caught it from the same place, like in England, in Italy, and this is what it has looked like. Let's keep moving, please. Now, let's talk about the symptoms of COVID-19. As I said earlier, the symptoms of COVID-19 present as an acute respiratory infection. That means people tend to have some kind of fever or a cough. It usually starts off with a little bit of a cough. And it has been described as a little dry cough. And then some people may go on to have the shortness of breath. And that is when people usually tend to show up at the health facility. So people will have fever, chest pain, depending on how severe. It looks like flu, basically. So there's no way to tell that you're not having the flu or the common cold. So you might start to just feel a bit not feeling so good, you start to cough, you develop a fever, and depending on how well you are, you may go on to develop the shortness of breath and start to having, the severe symptoms depending on your underlying health conditions and so on. Now, unlike the common cold, most of the reports that we have seen, and this is the information that we have now, is basically based on the studies from China because they had the bulk of the cases. They're saying that the sneezing actually was not very common in most of the cases. It was coughing was more pronounced, but a small handful of people did sneeze. Whether that is to do with the illness or so, we're not quite sure, but it said about 5% of patients would be sneezing. So the cough is usually the first symptom that you would see. Now, about 80 to 90% of people, as I showed you before from the latest figures yesterday, will have very mild symptoms. It means that you will have a little niggling cough and you won't really feel that sick enough to even end up at the doctor. So when people become infected, it's really important to remember this. And it's really important that you don't panic and become fearful. How many of you in here have had a cold before? Anybody in here have had the flu? And you're still here, right? That's what I'm talking about. The vast majority of people who catch this is going to be exactly like the last cold or the last flu you had. You will get over it. All right? Now, about 10 to 15% of people will end up in hospital. Because sometimes we have a bad flu season and that one hits you hard and it's like, okay, it's going on for 4 days now, I need something. And then you end up at the doctor. It's pretty much that's how it plays out. The reason why the government has put so much hype behind it is because the novelty. It's new. Flu, we have Tamiflu and other medications. For COVID-19, we don't have anything. So the precautionary measures that are being taken is because of the newness of the virus that we are dealing with and the fact that, well, if something goes wrong, we're not quite sure what to give people to make them better. And so that is the only difference, all right? However, that said, supportive therapy is available. So the symptoms that people experience, you can treat the symptoms, and that has been done successfully. That's why we have over 70-something people who have been able to recover and go home, and they are going about their businesses. So it's not a doomsday tale that we are telling. It's that there will be about 10 to 20% of people who might end up at the hospital or the healthcare center who will need a doctor to look after them. And a small percentage, maybe about 5%, may get critical. Now I need to talk about this 5%. If you could go to the next slide, please. This 5% of people who ended up in the critical category are people with underlying health conditions and very elderly people. The initial data that came out of China, they looked at about 70-something thousand people who got infected. It was the elderly who were among that first group who were the ones who needed to be admitted to hospital for extra care. And they found also that people with chronic diseases, cardiovascular diseases, was the number one. And the next slide will show you the proportion of people. Those with high blood pressure, chronic high blood pressure, heart problems or diabetes. And actually the people with cancer were actually way down on the bottom. And maybe that is because those people would more likely be protecting themselves anyway. But other people, like you and I, there are people in this room I know with diabetes and high blood pressure, who you feel strong and you go about your business every day, except you just know that you have to take your medicine or whatever. So you're strong people. However, those who have multiple conditions tend to be more at risk of hospitalization. All right? So let's go to the next slide and I'll give you I hope you can see this. So I did a breakdown based on the study that was done in China earlier in February. And so they showed you that for those in the over 80 years age group, when you look at the blue column, that's the confirmed cases. So there weren't even the vast majority of confirmed cases above that age. However, the death rate among those age groups was a little bit higher because of the underlying health conditions and the fact that they were aged and with age, your immune system is not as strong. Please go ahead. Keep going. So those under the age of 60 years old, as you can see, while they had a lot more cases in those age group distributed, which is the blue bar, the death rate was, you hardly see anybody dying in those age groups. And that's pretty obvious. So it means that our elderly people and those with chronic diseases are more at risk than anyone else for a severe outcome or hospitalization. And if I may jump ahead to say, we need to protect those people. We need to do extra to make sure we are looking after those people, right? And if I will fast forward this slide, I was going to talk about that. Because our elderly people and those with chronic diseases are more at risk, let us help them. If we can run the errands for them, buy groceries for them, help them to get their medication, reduce the risk of them going out and getting in contact with somebody with the illness. I think that would be a big effort on everybody's part to protect the most vulnerable people in our community. Please keep going. So yes, what else we can do? Wash your hand. I have a song that I wrote about the coronavirus, and it says, get the soap and water and we are go wash we hand, cover the sneeze and cough and then we are go wash we hand. We don't want no one to catch it, so we all gonna learn to stop it and keep the germs them out of the Caribbean. All right? It's really important. Remember I said that the hands are the big, after that person finishes sneezing or coughing, it's finished. But it's the hands that are moving the germs around and spreading it from place to place and from object to object, and the other person come and touch and they spread it. All right? Really, really important to wash hands. The social distancing is really important, and you hear this word, the Prime Minister or the Minister of Health, social distancing. What does it mean? Firstly, social distancing means keeping a certain amount of distance from another person. But it also has a bigger meaning. And you may hear the Minister of Health say, we will shut down all public gatherings, or we will ask mass gatherings of 500 or more not. That is a form of social distancing. It means that it reduces the risk of people coming together and spreading it among themselves, because the population is what we call naive to the virus. When flu season comes, only some people catch it because they're not 100%, so that everybody else is not necessarily naive to the virus. It means that we've had it before, or we've had this one before, so our body knows that, oh, I know you, back off, right? So when, for example, for those of us who have been immunized against something like measles is one of the most contagious diseases that we know of. It's highly contagious. You can catch measles 30 minutes after somebody has even left the room. The virus can still be in the air, which is airborne. But when we got that little stick that gave us the vaccine, our body developed this thing called antibodies to protect us against this virus. So when somebody who has measles pass and sneeze or cough or we enter that room, our body already knows measles. Yeah? So when the measles virus tries to get into our body, our antibodies say, back up. I know you can't come in here. Right? So that is so important. But we don't have that for COVID-19 as yet. So there will be some people, and we are hoping that this is going to happen, that when some people become exposed to it, they will also, we are hoping that this is the case, they might develop this immunity. And to run along quickly, they practice the respiratory, so you say, catch it, bin it, and kill it. Yeah? You catch that cough, and you make sure you bin it, and then you kill it with the hand washing, all right? So that is how we're going to do this together. And if you get sick, it's important to go to the healthcare facility and stay away from the public if you actually have symptoms. Please, let's keep going. All right, so I've talked about this, so let's go to the other one. And these are some infographics that we have, and I can share those with you if you would like to have them. And we have some about people who are traveling, what to do if you're traveling, and so on. And let's get to the next slide. Now, I want to talk just maybe a few minutes. How much time do I have, Pastor? Can I keep going? If you get sick, what you should do. some people will get sick because this is new and our bodies have not learned how to fight it yet. So some people will get sick. So what are we going to do if we get sick? Monitor your symptoms. As I said, most people will just have a mild cold-like illness. You won't be worried. It won't bother you. You'll just realize you have a little cough or so on. But monitor your illness, monitor the symptoms, and if they get worse and you start to develop some kind of respiratory distress, you can't breathe, your breath becomes short, that is when you need to go to see seek medical attention at that time. It is very important that if you start to have symptoms, stay away from other people. Stay at home. Most of your organizations those of us who work, will tell you straight away, if you start cough, don't come to work. They are putting in these measures to ensure that we don't spread stuff to other people. So stay away from others and stay home. But even within your home, so you're going to say, Pastor Stephanie, so what do I do with my husband or my wife or my children if I'm coughing at home? Keep that social distance, keep that distance from them as much as you can. All right? Now, the only condition under which we actually recommend that someone can break that distance is for a nursing mother. A mother who is breastfeeding can continue to breastfeed their baby, and we recommend that that person wear a mask when they're breastfeeding the baby. Because breastfeeding is one of the best protection that any human being can get. So breastfeeding should continue at all costs unless there is a major risk to that baby. If, for example, the baby is immunocompromised, let's say the baby is preterm, like a baby who born early, or the baby has some kind of underlying illness, then in those cases would not be the best. And in that way, you take the milk out and you put it in a bottle and feed it to the baby. So we don't say to give the baby formula, all right? So under those circumstances are the only circumstances under which the WHO recommends that you could continue to breastfeed if the child is not immunocompromised. If you have symptoms, that is when you wear a mask. The mask is not for the rest of us, please. Did you hear me? The mask is not for the rest of us. It is for the sick people. The rationale. If I am coughing and sneezing and I put on a mask, I am protecting all of you from my sneeze and my cough. Now, if you are not coughing and sneezing and you all wear a mask and I don't, what is going to happen? Although you may not catch it from me, there are other 500 people going to get it because they will come and I will contaminate everywhere and everybody will touch the place that I have messed up with my sneeze and cough. Does that make sense? So it is best for me who is sick to put on the mask, isn't it? So when I wear the mask, it is more protective for everyone else than me not wearing a mask. Now, masks can be very uncomfortable. I went to Port of Spain market yesterday and I saw security guards wearing N95 masks. I saw the supermarket cashiers and other people wearing N95 masks. And I was about to ask one lady, I wonder how long you can wear that for? In this heat in Port of Spain? How long you can keep that on for? One shop I went to, every single staff member in there had on a mask. And it was an N95. Now, the surgical mask is usually the little one that you put over. The N95 one has that filter on the front. You will see it has a little round thing. It has a filter. It is the best mask because it does filter the air. However, it is uncomfortable. What did I say? Uncomfortable. Not only that, N95 masks have to be fitted because, for example, sir, you've got a beard. You need to fit your mask on because you have a beard. It doesn't just fit on everybody's face. N95 mask has to be fitted. So you can't just go buy one and just fling it on your face like that. It actually is it is worse if you wear it without fitting it than actually not wearing it at all. Because now if it doesn't fit well, it doesn't really protect you. You're still inhaling everything coming around it that is getting around that mask. So it is a false sense of security. So please be mindful. I don't want to see any of you wearing a mask unless you are sick or caring for someone who is sick. Okay? Please, it's not necessary. Don't put on that mask unless you feel that you are at risk from catching it from maybe a family member, or if you have to go to the hospital. If you have a condition that requires you to go to the emergency department or to the health facility quite often, I would make a little leeway for those persons. My neighbor has cancer, and I actually told him when he's going in for his treatment to put on the mask. You know why I told him to do that? Because when he goes to that hospital, there'll probably be 500 people coughing and spluttering around him. I don't want my neighbor to catch that from them. But because he's going into an environment where there's very likely to be people with the condition. But I'm going to the supermarket, and if I go and I hear somebody coughing and sneezing, I'm going to maintain my 3 feet or 6 feet distance from that person. I'm not necessarily going to be wearing a mask around, because it is not that beneficial, and it might give you a false sense of security that might end up hurting you than protecting you. All right, please go to the next one. I've talked about washing your hands. I can't overemphasize that. Now, if you are ill and at home, it's important to clean the surfaces at home. How do you clean? The normal bleach that we use every day, that we buy in the shop, as far as I know, all of those bleach that is available in the commercial market is strong enough to kill COVID at this without adding anything else to it. You could even dilute it and it still would be able to, but don't dilute it too much. Most of us I know as Caribbean people, if we believe that it will have, we will even use the raw bleach, right? Some surfaces will not be able to tolerate the raw bleach. You could dilute it a little bit and you will still have enough of the active chlorine in it to still be able to kill the virus, all right? And before I move off that, the alcohol. I went to shop yesterday and I went into one store, and basically rubbing alcohol is almost done. If you don't have it yet, it's going to be hard to find it. But you know what they were selling? Methylated spirit. I looked at the container and it did not tell me what percentage of alcohol was in that bottle. And I feel that to whom much is given, much is expected. When I looked at that bottle, it didn't tell me the percentage of alcohol in that, and I went online and I searched. My research told me yesterday that methylated spirit is watered down alcohol. It has about 3% or 1% alcohol. Don't use it. Don't use methylated spirit. It is not strong enough. The hand sanitizers have about 60% minimum. So it has to have at least 60% alcohol to kill anything. That means methylated spirit cannot do it. It doesn't have enough alcohol in it to kill. Now, as a real true blue Jamaican, my mother have a bottle of white rum in the cupboard. And I'm going to ask her kindly, don't use any more in case we need that to use as sanitizer. Because Jamaican white rum have 60% alcohol. That is not an advertisement for Jamaican white rum. But I'm just saying, if you have something in your cupboard, you understand what I mean? Most of us, and my mother is there, most of us have a little stash that we use for medicine. So, we have a little stash. Well, I don't know about anybody else, but I know Jamaican people use white rum for medicinal purposes. So we have a little stash, and if needs be, we will use that, because of the concentration of the alcohol. So check the bottle for the blue one I saw yesterday, the alcohol had 70% alcohol in it. So please double check when you are buying, just to make sure you're not buying puss in a bag, as we would say. And finally, anything, the tissue and anything that you use to cough or sneeze with or to clean up, remember to dispose of those properly, because we don't want that to be hanging around and somebody touching that and picking up the virus from that. And also, lastly, as I said, if you start to see your symptoms begin to get worse, don't bother wait and play, hero. Seek medical attention. In some overseas countries, like Australia where I live, people are able to call ahead to their GP to say, look, I'm having symptoms, I feel I've been exposed, I'm coming. I don't know how feasible that is here in Trinidad and Tobago or to those watching us online. If you are able to call ahead to your doctor to say, I'm coming, it is best. That helps you two ways. It gives the doctor an opportunity to give you advice over the phone, and it also gives them the opportunity to prepare for your coming. So they might need to put you in a separate room so that you don't get in the same room with the other patients who are waiting. And so that is called isolation. They will put you in isolation away from other people, and then they're able to look after you separately. Now, I am suspecting that in most Caribbean settings, we might not be able to get somebody on the other end of that phone, especially if it's a hospital. If you are unwell enough and it is an emergency, I would say go straight to the hospital. When you get there, the first thing you need to tell them is, I have been exposed to COVID, or I have symptoms that I feel could be COVID-19. Give me a mask if you don't have one, okay? If you have a mask at home, put it on while you're on your way. And don't take the trotro. What do you call the little buses here? What do you call them? The maxi taxi, please. The maxi taxi is not the place that you need to travel on to the hospital if you can help it. If you have a good neighbor or friend, or if you don't have your own vehicle, it's best to get someone to take you so you don't go and give it to everybody else. All right, that's the best thing to do. So just make sure you notify them the moment you get there and ask them. If they don't give it to you, ask for it. And if they don't give it to you, ask them the name and write it down and make sure you can report it to their supervisor. All right? And please, next slide. All right? And I'm coming down, I think this is my second to last slide. Make a family plan. Make a family plan. We are a family as a church community. We all have our individual families. Make a family plan. Is there anybody in my family that is at risk? So you went check, okay? All right. Now, these people might need extra medication. Maybe they already have some prescription. If they don't, ask the doctor. Based on what is happening, we know that the government might begin to limit movements very soon. Can we have an extra prescription so we can get some medicine for auntie or daddy or mommy or me? So we can have something in case things limit, but also in case things get short. Because in times like these, shortages do happen. So if you can have a little backup supply of medication, your essential medication is going to be really, really important. But I also want you to do another thing. Help your elderly relatives and those who might not be able to read and write understand what's happening. The biggest challenge that we as health workers have had in this outbreak is the misinformation and the false information. It has given us more work than the actual COVID itself. So help them to understand. Now, see, you had an expert come and explain things for you today, explain it to them. Or I've printed out some handouts that you can go home and you can read that for them and break it down. Because now it's a little bit clearer, I hope. Is it clearer? Yes, you can break it down for them. Help them to understand that actually, it's not as bad as everybody was making this thing out to be. We are going to make it in by the grace of God. Amen? Amen? So explain that to them. And also keep an essential little stash of emergency food supplies at home. Because as I said, shortages are expected to happen because the global travel has shut down. And a lot of us depend on things coming from outside. They will come, and I already started to see people were price gouging yesterday. They were, one bottle of hand sanitizer, that liquor bottle was for $50 in Port of Spain, Trinidad and Tobago. Shame on you! One little bottle of hand sanitizer for $50. Shame on those people who have done that. It is wrong. Yeah? They're gouging the prices and they are hiding stuff. Because I went to a very large place yesterday and I can tell you, I know there's no way on earth that they could have sold out all their supplies already. So I believe what they have done is to hide it and wait for next week and then they're going to double the price. Shame on those people as well. All right? And last point on this, Neighbors, please, 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 neighbors. We may have some neighbors who are single. For example, if my mother wasn't here with me, I would be a single, well, I'm not a single mother, I have a husband, but my husband is not with me. So it means that I would have been here with Enoch by myself. As a foreigner, we have a lot of people like that in Trinidad and Tobago. If you know them, there are many of my colleagues too who are coming from somewhere else. Check up on them, please. Don't take it for granted that somebody has done it. Check up on them, find out how they are doing, find out if they need a hand with something, okay? And if there's Uncle Tom, you know, that 90-year-old man who you always see walk down the street with his stick, check up on him too. Check up on those people. Because maybe Uncle Tom don't have Facebook. And he's not hearing the CNC3 news every 5 seconds like you and I are doing. So some of the things that are happening, poor Uncle Tom probably didn't hear. So let's check up. And you know what I'm talking about, right? Let us be our brother's keeper, please. And as the pandemic progresses, the government will put in measures. Every government is doing what they can to safeguard their country, their community. So they might ask for different things. They've already put in some measures this week. This week coming, schools have been closed. And as things progress, it's gonna get worse before it gets better. We need to be mindful, but also look after our mental health, all right? If you have relatives that are coming in and out, let them know what is happening on the ground. Pass on the information that comes from the government and let them know. But I also need to stress that we need to get information from credible sources. Please, if you get something, check it first. Don't pass on every little rubbish that people forward to you on your WhatsApp, because it is making matters hard for the people who are actually doing the job. Check it first. How are you going to check it? You could check CARFA's website. I am ensuring that we have up-to-date information every other day. We can't keep up with it, so we're doing every other day now. But please, check CARFA website. Yeah, it's www.carpha.org, and you can look for novel coronavirus, and we have updates there. We have instructions, what people can do, World Health Organization website or the Pan American Health website. And check your Ministry of Health website for what is happening locally and on the ground. It's really important, and comply. If the government asks us to do something, we as believers have a responsibility to lead and to be obedient and to show example. All right? And then if you could go to my last one, this one. I just want to encourage you, church, and those who are watching me from wherever you are watching this in the world. We are in trying times, but I am sure that God knows what is happening. All right? I'm not preaching, but I put this there for you. That I know some of us are afraid, and I'm not going to tell you not to be afraid. But what I will tell you is what the Word of God says. It says, when I am afraid, I will call upon the name of the Lord. If you have not yet started to call on the name of the Lord, now is the time to call on the name of the Lord. But remember, the Lord said that He will be with you. He will be with you and me. And so we have that assurance that our God, my God, your God is bigger than COVID-19. He is bigger, and He said to us in His word in Psalm 91 that the pestilence that walk in the noonday and those that come in night, that He is able to overcome them. But He said it is those who dwell in the secret place, in the shelter, under the wings of the Almighty. If you're not under the wings of God Almighty, now is the time to put yourself under the wings of God Almighty. I want to thank you for having me today. I do hope I've shed some light on this topic. I am around and I'm always available to answer questions. I don't know if we will have time for some questions now.
Some people might have a question.
Yes.
Was the vaccine ever developed for SARS-1?
I'm not aware of that. I am aware that there is one in development for this one now. It has not yet been given the green light. But with vaccines, it does take time for a vaccine to be developed because it has to go through various stages of testing. So once they have done the laboratory part of the work, where they test it in animals and so on, or first they might test it in live cells, then they might put it in live animals. The human part of the trial usually have to go through 4 different stages, and for many, many ethical reasons, right? So it's really important that it goes through the right means. Now, if you know that with Ebola, they jumped some of those steps, and I'm not quite sure how that worked out, but it would be really important that a vaccine goes through appropriate tests and safety measures before it is given to humans. And I would be very cautious about taking any vaccines for COVID-19 unless I am pretty certain that some of those measures were followed. Yeah. Yes?
You mentioned that things would probably get worse before it gets better. Do you have a good guess as to how long that period of before it gets better could be?
Look, I won't give an estimate because I haven't done that myself. And I think it would be unfair for me to do that. Okay? Because...
So can you repeat the question?
Sorry. So the question was, I did say that things may get worse before it gets better. And I said I don't think I'm in a position to make that judgment. Particularly because this is new. So if it was maybe an influenza H1N1 that we have seen before and that we've managed before, then I could look at some historical data to say, well, what normally happens is we have a peak and it usually runs out within about 8 weeks, which is what I've done that previously for the influenza seasons in my job in Australia. But because COVID-19 is a new virus, we're not sure how well the population itself will respond. And there's still so much gray areas about how infectious this virus is in terms of the ability for people to pass it on from one person to the other. So as we begin to collect more data, and remember too that sometimes ethnicity can be an important variable when it comes to diseases. So we don't know how it might play out in the tropical areas because this outbreak started in winter in a temperate climate where it was maybe cold and so on. We're not sure how it might play out. So that is part of the reason why I would be really cautious not to do some kind of projections at this time, because we're still quite naive to it and we don't have enough data to help me to make that kind of projection. But we are hopeful. We are hopeful and we can just pray and ask God for mercy. And yes,
you mentioned that there's some myths that we need to debunk or at least be aware of. When it comes to nutrition, is there anything that you could say just to clarify for us the efficacy of certain kinds of foods or if you could explore that?
All right, so the question was about nutrition, and there have been some myths circulating about maybe foods and stuff. What I would say about nutrition is this. Nutrition is a very important aspect of health. The food we eat and the way we treat our body is a very important part of our immune system and our ability to recover and to fight off diseases. Nutrition is absolutely essential. So if there's any food, the vitamins and minerals that we normally eat, they help to boost our immune systems. Yeah? So it is important that you are eating well and resting as well. And that is a warning to me because I'm working really hard. It's important to eat well and rest. Those things help your body to fight diseases off, naturally speaking. Now, as a Caribbean people, I know, and I live in a household where we are strong believers in bush medicine because we have tried and tested it over the years. We don't know currently if any of those are able to fight off COVID because we have just never seen it before. My advice would be eat well. If you are able to take any supplements to help boost your immune system, by all means, go ahead and do it. It can only benefit you and should not harm you. All right? So I would be saying, boost up your immune system with vitamins and minerals as much as you can, because those are the building blocks that will help your immune system to to fight off infections, generally speaking. And especially if you have underlying conditions, that will help give you an extra boost so that your body has a little extra defense to help, beat off anything that might come. Did you have, okay. Is it okay if I take the last two?
No, yeah, take it, please.
Yes, please go ahead. Let's.
Doctor, consider somebody like me who works in the retail industry, where I deal with different people every day, handling cash and stuff like that. Would normal sanitizing work? And what measures should I put in place, to limit the exposure of my staff and stuff like that?
Okay. So currently in this country, we only have a very tiny few, as up to the last count, I know it was 2 confirmed cases. But we know that over time that could actually change. So we're not just talking for today, we have to think about tomorrow. And I use the word tomorrow in a general sense. So as a retail person, it means that you come quite closely with people, and the issue is, what measures do you need to take as a person working in the retail industry to protect you and your staff? There are a few things you could do. The first thing I would love for you to do is to have a meeting with your staff to let the staff know the stuff we've spoken about today. The importance of the good hand hygiene, the washing of the hands, the cough etiquette, but also to put in a plan for your business to tell staff, if you are sick, don't come to work. That is shutting your back door, all right? Because a lot of the effort has been placed on the front door, but your back door is wide open if you don't prepare your staff. So you're preparing the staff and you're letting them know, and you put facilities in place to help them to comply. The other thing too, though, you need the staff to be able to use good sense, yeah? So I would say yes, you could have a little stash of your mask available, especially for the cashiers and those people who are sitting right there in the public, that if necessary they can put that on. But I would also say put up some signs around the shop and ask people, remind them, put reminders. The more reminders we give to people, the better it is, because if they miss it in Tom's shop, they will pick it up in yours. Please, if you're coughing and sneezing, do not come. One other thing that a lot of businesses will need to start thinking about is, can I do a delivery service? It will take a little bit of thinking through and a little bit of planning, but so that we keep the supply moving and that we keep the population served, you might need to start thinking about a delivery service, because you can put protective equipment on a delivery man, and that is more sensible than giving it to 10 people in your shop who is not really exposed. All right. Some of the first things to do would be to make sure your staff know what to do. If the staff see Mary Jane walk through and begin to cough, then staff should know, okay, I need to tell my supervisor. There was a lady back there coughing down the aisle and she was spluttering all over the flower section. So somebody should have that little bucket of bleach water ready to go wipe down the counters, the goods. But then the second thing is, though, somebody doesn't need to come in coughing and sneezing for you to wipe down. It's a public place, people will come in. And I am not telling anybody to shut their shops now, because I know that is a whole other level of issues that are going to happen. Keep shop open as long as you possibly can, and as long as it is safe to do so. But you're going to put in some backstops. This is what we call backstops. Every hour, you have one person that you are going to designate to wipe down everything. It's effective. We've done it before and it is proven effective. So you're going to assign one staff member who's going to be wiping down with your bleach solution. Cashier area, cash register. Even the person at the cash register, I wouldn't be averse if you give them a glove, pair of disposable gloves that they can use to collect the money. But also supply them with the hand sanitizer so that they can be doing that hand hygiene fairly regular, because I'm sure the cashier can't get up every 5 minutes to wash hands, but they should have in fact, you know what, the glove thing might actually get you in more trouble than give them a bottle of hand sanitizer and remind them, and then have maybe a supervisor who checks to make sure that these measures are happening. and then it becomes like, habit. It becomes habit, and staff are aware that they need to do this over and over again. All right, so hopefully, and as things get out now, as more people in the community, if you hear the government announce that, okay, we have people in the community with the disease and we can't find them, that is when I would start to become a little bit more worried that, okay, I don't know who have this thing, so this is where you might begin to restrict some of your movements and some of your activities. All right? All right. Thank you so much, and I do hope that I've been able to answer your questions, and may the peace of the Lord be with us all. Thank you.